In the defining matchup of Group C, the final hope for the LEC in Rogue steps up to the plate in an attempt to fight out DRX in what's probably the most important matchup of the group. When the quarterfinals are as stacked as they are this Worlds, being able to secure that favorable matchup in the top 8 can be a huge difference maker when it comes to your path to the top, and in this case, this further emphasizes just how instrumental this win can be to the entire rest of the tournament. As always, if you enjoy content like this, feel free to drop a sub to support the channel. Let's hop into the draft. Hopping into the first phase bans, we've got DRX starting on blue side this game. They ban out Ornn, Lucian, and Maokai. On the other hand, Rogue ban out Aatrox, Heimerdinger, and Yuumi. Starting off, a lot of things on the field are open right now. Azir, Caitlyn, Kalista, Sejuani, the list goes on here. Heimerdinger ban has also been hedging against this Kalista pick as well, so that's something to keep in mind. Kind of knowing the amount of stuff that's open here, I actually like the adaptation from Rogue to get the Heimerdinger ban because this is a very high chance that they will be able to secure it R2 without much recourse. Surprisingly enough, we can actually see the Caitlyn opener come out from DRX. Honestly, Caitlyn has been a champion that when piloted in the right hands can be some of the most oppressive gameplay that you can see in pro play. The one thing holding her back is that execution piece, so I find it very interesting that they're willing to bust it out against Rogue. The two options to counter this potential Cait Lux combo are going to either be outvaluing it with engaged and strong kill pressure in lane, or you can try to outrange and neutralize the lane. Rogue have actually volunteered for the latter here and swing for the Ezreal Karma. Although it's not something that's picked often, it actually has a good matchup into Caitlyn lanes because it has a ton of poke that oppresses this lane. So I really like the flexibility of Rogue to pivot into this style. As expected though, DRX pair off the Lux with the Caitlyn in the B2-B3, but they also swing for the Sylas blind. DRX have already handshaken the fact that this whole game is going to be centered around bottom lane, so I'm assuming the pick is to help facilitate that. I think a champion like LeBlanc would have probably been a safer blind to swing for in this case, but the Sylas can also work. Rogue themselves actually use their R3 to counterpick into Sylas with LeBlanc, which is one of the better matchups into it. The other main picks here would probably be something like a Kali or Azir, depending on the style of team fighting they want, but I think they want the early game agency to be able to put this Caitlyn lane to a stop. Moving into phase 2, both teams are missing their picks in jungle and top, so bans are of course going to be centered around the most annoying picks to round out each composition. Rogue currently have a poke win condition around DRX, so the remaining two picks are going to supplement that style while also picking some frontline. DRX are somewhat similar, but the main caveat that they have in this draft is that Rogue have access to R5, which should secure them a good matchup in topside. Rogue ban out Sejuani and Kennen in this case. In my opinion, I'm a little surprised that Rogue actually opted to remove Sedge since it's a pretty free take for them in R4 if they don't ban it, so the onus is really on DRX here. On the other hand, DRX remove Renekton and Jarvan, which are two picks that can do well in target selection and dissect Caitlyn or Lux in fights, which will make them much harder for DRX to function. Smart bans overall. What's crazy to me out of the bans is that Rogue actually used their R4 on topside and blind picked Gnar. Now, while I think Gnar is a decent blind and functions well with their comp, this is a situation in which Rogue should be pretty much blinding jungle every single time. They already have pretty much as much information as they need in order to determine how they want to play these fights, and they've already picked LeBlanc as their mid laner, so they should already be just picking a high octane jungler that functions well in the mid jungle 2v2, like Lee Sin, Viego, or Vi. You could pick pretty much any of these champions and DRX would not be able to gather any information from that because it should be pretty much expected. By blinding the Gnar in this slot, you are revealing whatever flexibility you had left in your draft realistically without really much to gain. The only reason I could see Rogue doing this is that they were scared of losing the Gnar themselves, in which case they could just secure a strong matchup into the Gnar anyway. This could be indicative of a champion pool issue for Odo, but I don't think this is the case. Regardless, I just think this was an absolutely massive fumble from Rogue. DRX punishes them so hard for it too, because in the B4-B5 they slam Camille and Vi, securing both of them a good matchup for topside, but now being able to close that gap and remove some of the win conditions for Rogue in that poke. Poke comps will only function for as long as you can poke down the enemy comp uncontested, but if you allow champion picks like Vi and Camille to come in, two champions with guaranteed and unstoppable lockdown by the way, you're not going to be able to get that condition going. Lee Sin is R5 for Rogue in this case, and I don't really think it would have been any different if they picked it R4 instead. This leads into what I think about this draft overall and what was originally such a dope set for Rogue here, and it ended up just being such a disaster due to a couple fumbles in the last two picks. This is what I mean right now when I say that drafts are extremely sensitive, and you actually have to be so careful with both the order and the champions that you're picking in each slot. Before phase 2, I think Rogue actually had a pretty good lock on this draft overall, but this one fumble in the R4 and R5 picks actually turned their draft from a winning one into an absolutely losing one. Overall, I rate this draft 65-35 for DRX. As always though, I hope this analysis was insightful to you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay fresh.